Hi guys, this is Wenzes from Below the Radar Above the System, and today I want to talk to you a little bit more about accepting and producing functions, about inert and contact functions. And to keep it rather simple, we're just gonna narrow it down to the first two functions. Because if you look at Socionics, there are 8 functions altogether. We have our shadow functions, and then we have those top 4 functions, which are also known in MBTI, which, for INFJs are NI, FE, TI, and SE. But when we concentrate on the first 2 functions, we can get a lot of stuff done, and probably the most important things and the things that are most beneficial for our life. And in a lot of cases, we do tend to go into those lower functions or into our shadow functions by kind of short circuiting, I think that's how it's called, by going like really jumping from NI to TI, which causes a lot of problems, or going directly and overindulging in SE. But the truth is, if you really stick to who you are and you kind of concentrate on those first 2 functions, which are really who you are, then you'll get the best result out of it, and you can help most people. So as we said, the accepting functions are the functions of how we perceive reality. This is real to us. This is not changeable. This is just something we observe. That's nothing we kind of like put out there normally. And then the creative functions are the things, how we react to that reality, how we put our view of reality out there, how we kind of like tell our truth, pretty much. And it can be in different ways. For us, for INFJs, it's of course NI is our worldview, and we put out FE. But NI is not as objective as we all might think. Especially each one of us has a different life story, has different experiences, and there's no way we can have an overall view of everything that's happened in the world. So of course everybody will have some kind of different NI, and therefore a different reality. If you experience just kind of positive things, of course you're gonna feel a different way than if you were in a situation where a lot of bad things have happened to you. And the other 2 parameters, or kind of that's part of the model, is inert and contact. And inert are functions which are very hard to change. Like, you need a really external stimuli to change that, and you have to be somewhere where you really have no other choice but to accept a new truth. And this is not necessarily, those inert functions are not necessarily also the accepting functions, and the contact functions are not necessarily the creative functions. But for the first 2 functions, it's one-on-one. The inert functions are accepting functions, and the contact function is also our creative function. And it makes a lot of sense, because we sometimes lose kind of track. We don't know what to do with our life because we have not found a limit to our NI yet. We want to experience life and happiness by showing other people the way, how they can create a better life for themselves, and through that we kind of like make them like us, and therefore we feel good. This is a natural thing that's happening. And sometimes if you feel like you know so much more than others, then you kind of get into this problem of how much are you really willing to put out your truth, since that truth might hurt other people. See, a lot of us INFJs have this feeling of we know better, so we have to protect people. So we give them kind of what they want to hear, or what will make them feel better. Because we feel there's no actual truth, as in there's one truth, and this is the lifestyle you have to live by. We kind of believe that everybody comes from a different place and does their different things. But the problem comes when you see that as your main your main direction in life. As in, that's the only way you can create happiness for your life, by giving people something that they want, that they need, that they like, and through that you gain happiness. And it gets very difficult in situations where you just really have to work your NI to such a degree and not really put your truth out, because then you get into a very negative spiral, as in you don't balance yourself out. You don't balance yourself out. And you see that with introverts and you see it with extroverts. With introverts, we kind of drift into this NI, FI, SI world one by one, and it gets really, really draining for us, especially those shadow functions, FI and SI. FI becomes very much, we start being ashamed of ourselves, and when you get into like really the sphere of SI, then it's just, you kind of lose all hope for life, or all kind of, motivation for anything. And I personally got into this way because I had not found a limit to my NI. I thought that is the only way I can, manage through life. It was an understanding of my NI that I have to do this, that I have no other choice. And every time I would actually stand up for myself, knowing that the other person is weaker than me. That's what I thought at that moment, because I thought, apparently that person is fighting for something, and it's not, that they're suffering. I need to help them. By that, I went way too much into this NI world, and you need to like kind of find like a limit. And I got to a point where it was just so painful that I needed to kind of change my perception. I needed to understand, no, actually that person is not that good, that I need to protect that. And it was very, very difficult for me to accept that. They say if people criticize you on your creative function, that is really painful to you, because this is kind of like your baby. This is kind of like what you create, who you are. And we very often don't think about it, that people can't recognize our creative function, or they can't value it, because we have such a different accepting function, the NI function, and it's really difficult for somebody to understand what's going on in that accepting function if they're not an NI. And we always have the accepting function also sympathizes with others in exactly that regard. So if we see somebody has an NI problem, or we see that somebody is stuck there, or has some kind of area, NI area, where one could actually help and navigate that, then we really want to help them. And this is how it is with other people and their main function. So if you have an ENFJ, they will see the world through FE. They will not see it through NI. It's not that this person is just more extrovert than the other person than an INFJ. Those are completely two different things. And so, as I said, somebody criticizes your creative function, it is painful, and you kind of like drift into that negative mind. So you put something out there, you're creative, the other person doesn't understand it and actually feels you're betraying them, or you're being mean to them. So what do you do? You go more introversion. You kind of like try to understand even more, go into an I, and then if you really stay there too long, that's when all those other functions get activated, FI and SI, and then it just really gets bad. So we have to understand and remember that the main thing is to get a better grasp of our own reality, and to understand that people will not gonna understand you completely if they're not NI, and you have to get away from wanting people to understand it. I've read somewhere, or I've read more than one INFJs who've been, much older than me, who've said, the one thing you have to learn in life, stop trying for people to understand you. It's not, people cannot understand exactly how you feel if they're not in your shoes, or if they're not coming from that same perspective. And you have to find a limit to that. You don't have to understand everything. This NITI loop can be very, very draining, and you need to extrovert yourself to actually put out what you think, what you really think, and not what you think the other is going to make the other person feel good, but your own truth, in order to kind of like take all of that FI and SI out of you, because those shadow functions are very draining. And although this might sound like, oh, I'm such a bad person, I'm not allowed to do this is exactly what you have to do. And the thing with the accepting function, as I said, you need a very strong external stimuli to get you there. And this is what happened to me. I was really confronted with that information. I had to change my entire worldview, and therefore I put other information out. I put my truth out. I put out who I am, and I really try to create a balance between those two, so that I can actually achieve what I thought before I would have to achieve through other people. As in, I thought I didn't have enough SE. I needed to kind of like get it through having people with SE around me, until I understood that I actually have to integrate that and understand that no, we're all the same. I'm all by myself in this. Nobody's gonna really understand me to that extent, because they have other accepting functions. Their reality is different, as in you live in water and they live in in wind or whatever it is, and you can't really compare those two. But what you have to understand is that there are always limits, because at some point you don't feel good about yourself. And if you don't feel good about yourself, if you're not the best version of yourself, if you're kind of like draining yourself, then you're not beneficial to anybody. So there are certain cuts you have to make. And once you make those cuts, and I'm okay, my NI has changed so far that I know this is how far it will go, I will not think about how that person feels, because it doesn't get us anywhere. And I've realized that, like before, I used to not want to meet people or say certain things because I thought, oh, this is gonna hurt them, and so on. And this is a natural thought of me. And now, since I know, okay, I need to create an atmosphere between my accepting and my creative function that is that much balanced, that I don't get too much into my introverted side, in order to actually be healthy and have like a valuable life. And now I don't think about those things. I don't even go there. Like, I really rather make sure to tell my story and my truth, and not be so worried that I'll lose my NI or I lose my FI, what it actually is, because this is what happens. You never lose your NI. This is what you live. But sometimes you feel like you forget who you are, and your own feeling of love or of being, because you put out FE, which is rather superficial, and therefore there's less of that FI side. But this is not how it works, because first off, by you extroverting, by you putting more into your creative function, people see more about yourself. Because if I put out FE, or I talk about something, subconsciously there's so much more of my real FI coming out and reaching the other people. It's much more evident to other people, and there's a much higher chance for people to recognize who you are than by you actually indulging in those things, not putting anything out there, and then people cannot get any idea of who you are. So yeah, this is it now on accepting and producing functions, or accepting and producing functions, and inert and contact. As I said, in the first two functions, it's one and the same. And important thing too, so as a roundup, also for other people to understand, people will not change their worldview just because you tell them, oh, this is better for you. They need to like have really strong external stimuli, and then you stay kind of like connected there. There has to be something that really makes them feel there's no other way to go. Otherwise, you won't change. You won't change. They won't change. That's just how our brain works. So if I really feel like, oh, those are good people, I need to help them, it's not gonna help, it's not gonna change if some people tell me, well, that person is not treating you right, you should fight back. It didn't help me. I had to get to a point where I realized, okay, no, this is not the right direction for me. It doesn't help me in the long run, and I needed to shift. And now that I shifted, I know how much better I feel, how much more I can accomplish, and really bring value to life, and so on. And this is how it is with others. People kind of tend to go either all into extroverted side or all into introverted side. Not always, of course, but I personally have gotten a lot into that introverted side, and I've seen extroverts or ENFJ, for example, really completely going into that extroverted side, and then you don't feel anything, and whatever you do then as an ENFJ is not fulfilling at all, because it's all just, you kind of just emerge in your social side, and there's nothing that really stimulates you on a deep level. So you always want more and more and more, and nothing is important. For them, it's important to understand that they have to introvert, and that this is the truth, and they'll do it. And unless you kind of really push them to a side where they understand, okay, when I'm all in that extroverted side, somebody can hurt me really bad. Because, for example, for ENFJs, if they're all in that side, and then they're very sensitive to external validation. So unless somebody really makes them feel bad in that one situation, they're not going to understand that they have to kind of get more introverted and get away from external validation mode. Okay, so yeah, this is it. And yeah, I have a couple more videos I'll do now. So talk to you soon. Bye.